I think there is a real issue and real danger of escalation. And the comparison with the beginning of World War II, I think, is a very stark one, which we listen to it. Do I believe we're at that place now? Potentially, yes. I think what's happened in Poland indicates to me that there's a degree of recklessness or deliberate provocation on behalf of Putin and his military, which is extremely dangerous. If it's just recklessness, then basically what they mean is they don't care about what we're doing, they don't believe us. But it may also be deliberate, and if it's deliberate, it follows a kind of pattern of behaviours which we see actually on a very regular basis. We continually have Russian aircraft or Russian ships probing our defences. We've also had in the last year to year and a half particularly even more aggressive actions. We've had Russian spy ships sitting over the top of major data cables. We've seen instances of sabotage and all sorts of other behaviour. So I think it's part of a pattern of pushing, and seeing whether or not our security guarantees, our defences, our general resilience is good enough. The issue, therefore, is for us to be clear. So Putin's message, Putin understands our message, that we will respond vigorously and we will respond. If he doesn't understand that, then the danger of it spiraling out of control, in other words, something happening that he provokes and then we can't control it, I think is much greater. There is a good argument that in a funny old way, World War III has already started. It just doesn't look like World War II. So it doesn't got no declaration of war. It's a kind of a general assault and attack on our institutions and on our infrastructure. So you have some gradual shading. We call it hybrid warfare. So gradual shading of sub-conventional warfare attacks, which might then shade into conventional warfare attacks, and then might lead to a direct attack on one of the NATO nations or neighbouring countries. So I think what we're looking at is potentially, yes, we could have a World War III that looks like World War II. Much more to the point, I think we're going to have this continuation of this sort of general miasma of destruction, hybrid warfare, grey zone warfare, all those kind of terms, all basically tell you that in many respects World War III has already begun. I think it's one of the big dangers we've always had with these sorts of issues. Everyone tries to manage it. They play you either call it chess or risk. They're playing these games and trying to manage them. But when you're talking about weapons and real weapons being used, even if they're just being used as kind of test defences, there is the danger of it escalating and coming out of control. And I think that's why we need to be clear about what we're trying to do. What's our objective in all of this? And our objective's got to be twofold. Firstly, is to defend Ukraine, and secondly, defend Europe. And in defence of those, I think we need to be fairly robust and resilient. If we just become, if you like, prisoners of events, then there is much more danger that an event that goes badly wrong, a missile this time, it doesn't swerve around and go back into Ukraine, but actually lands in Poland and causes a major conflagration. That will be worse. I think the next target is probably one of the Baltic countries. And there are ready-made excuses for fighting there. All those countries have got not insignificant Russian populations. Some of those Russian populations are fairly disillusioned with the post-Cold War governments in place. And indeed, in some cases, those governments have been fairly discriminatory against them, or certainly that sort of can be whipped up and said to be discriminatory against them. So he's got lots of ready-made excuses saying that he needs to protect the Russian minorities, which is an excuse that he used in 2014, particularly in eastern Ukraine. So I think his next area of threat will be into the Baltics, but there are others as well. Moldova is a very weak, very poor country to the south and west of Ukraine, and you'll recall there is this rather bizarre sort of leftover from the sort of 1945 Transnistrian Republic that sits there as well, and those could be areas where he could try and force a problem on us, which forces us to react, and maybe not react as well as we ought to. So there are lots of opportunities for him to mischief make and push and test NATO and NATO's resolve. I think Trump should respond in terms of this, and he should take it as seriously as I hope we're taking it. I think the first thing he'll say, though, is this is the Europeans' problem, and that Europe needs to step up to the plate in terms of providing its own defence and its own security against Russian aggression. I think he's now lost that kind of bromance thing that was going on with Putin at the beginning of this year. This idea he could solve everything within 24 hours. His comments on Putin and Putin's behavior recently have been much more realistic and much more recognizing the way in which Putin behaves. But will Trump respond vigorously? I doubt it until he sees Europeans responding rigorously as well. He will no doubt condemn it and say this was a reckless bit of his behaviour. There may be some sort of words backwards from Putin saying it was an accident or whatever. But the real issue, I think, as always, is not just what will America do or what will Trump do, is what will the Europeans do. And I think that's what the Americans are looking for at the moment. And we've heard that from not just from President Trump, but from Vice President Vance, from Secretary of Defense Hegseth. The expectation is that Europeans will step up to the plate and look after their own defence and resilience. So I think what Europeans should do in terms of responding to this, first is ask Poland what does it need to do that. We need to continue our support to Ukraine because Ukraine basically is our front line, but we need to provide support to Poland and to other what you might now call the frontline states. So the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and other countries who are threatened by that. I think we should also be really honest with ourselves and say, look at how what we are in terms of what we're providing, and can we provide more? Is there more we can do to support them, not just in the short term, but in the medium to long term? And I thought most important of all, I think it's just recognise this huge reality gap at the moment between our kind of rhetoric, which says we recognise that Russia is a threat, is a revanchist country looking to change, and actually what we're spending on our defence. I mean, Starmer has said there will be an uptick in terms of our defence spending, but the timeline for this is grossly unrealistic. He's talking about getting to 3.5% of GDP by 2035. Well, all the intelligence estimates suggest that Russia is looking to seriously test NATO within a 2 to 3 year timeline, so 2027. So we don't have the time and the luxury that the Treasury, with their nicely planned out general increase in defence expenditure, are working on. We should recognise we could be 2 to 3 years away from a major confrontation with Russia and respond accordingly. And I think that message needs to get across not just to our own government, but to all the European governments as well.
I've been in touch with the Polish Prime Minister this morning to make clear our support for Poland. We will stand firm in our support for Ukraine. With our partners and through our leadership of the coalition of willing, we will continue to ramp up the pressure on Putin until there's a just and lasting peace.
Yeah, there's only one way to deal with a bully, and that's to stand up to them. And Putin is a bully. We need to stand up to him. It'll be hard, it'll be difficult, it's risky, but we absolutely need to stand up to him. Otherwise, the situation will just get worse.